Hi, I'm Susan Main. I'm an artist, educator, curator, and organizer. My art practice has expanded over 30 years to include projects that address a variety of interdisciplinary and mixed media approaches, including collaboration. I'm going to walk you through a case study of a project that I've been involved in since 2009, a little bit before, called Yard of the Yard. This is a project that has been an evolving commitment to collaborative and creative approaches to explore a question that started the initial question was, what do we share in common? And our interactions that help the questions that are driving forward our collaborations are more inclusive when a variety of diverse skill sets, experiences are honored. At least that's been the experience that I have found as I've walked this question through time and space. I initiated this project collaborating with artist Rawad Omarzad, who was centered in Afghanistan, in Kabul, Afghanistan, when we began our collaborative project. And I just wanted to share one yard of my yard with Mr. Omarzad, who was doing wonderful arts work for contemporary arts in Afghanistan during very, very difficult times. This was post 9/11. Both our country and Afghanistan were reeling from the aftermath of that experience. And he was definitely trying, through his Center for Contemporary Arts Afghanistan, trying to find a way for both men and women to express themselves using art. So I connected with him and I asked him, would you mind sharing one yard of your yard? And this was an early sort of a telematic performance. Our tools were still quite blurry and not so perfect, but through AOL chat, we were managed to just set up our cameras and show each other one yard of our yards. And that was the beginning of many collaboration experiences post that sharing of our yards. But here's a quick document still of our yards. And if you were there for this performance, you would see these two squares that were exactly 36 inches by 36 inches, these plinths that were 6 inches off the ground. And projectors were aimed at those plinths to show in real time our actual grounds. And it was kind of funny because, of course, we'd lose connection and we'd get back, and we were talking about a lot of different things while we were projecting our yards. People would come in, they would look at the yards, and they would say, okay, which one's the US and which one's Afghanistan? When they knew which one was Afghanistan, they would often recoil and say, are we going to see a bomb explode? So I felt like it was a wonderful chance to bring us back to the reality that we all share a piece of this ground. We all have many things in common. And despite the, controversy and political state of affairs, we are human beings that share the earth. And from that, we started to develop. I went back to sort of looking at this idea that anyone could be involved in this 1 yard of a 1 yard piece of ground exploration. And so I started to create materials where we could ask people to share their yard. So this was an introduction, just a little card that we shared with people. A 1 yard by 1 yard piece of ground is a small plot for humans. A body can barely fit on it, but the soil beneath is a complex system of activity, biological, geological, historical, cultural, meteorological. It holds big stories. Under our feet are complicated portraits that affect our daily life. How do your activities make an impact? My ground touches your ground. My ground meets your ground. Your eyes, hands, feet, stories touch the ground. we hold this in common. Oh, sorry. Let me go to the next slide. And so on the heels of this, I was accepted into a residency program at Governor's Island, a Project Soils residency. And this connected my investigations to urban soil scientists and artists, in particular, the urban soil scientists in New York City. And we had some porch chats and we talked about our ideas and how to actually bring the scientists and artists together over a number of issues. But in particular, for the Yard of the Yard, we were looking for people to participate. And I ended up inviting a fellow artist, MJ Neuberger, to join me in this residency as we began to explore the ground both as a verb and as a noun, and give presentations to the public while we were in residence. We had a couple of different ways that we did this, but here's information about the Urban Soils website, gives that, and you can see that their goals are to provide opportunities for artists and soil scientists to explore common interests and passions, engender stewardship of our soil and ecology, create an interactive community of scientists, artists, educators, and citizens, promote soils education through fun, accessible, poetic, and unexpected means, and connect with other stewards of the earth. It sounds really close to, if you watched my other webinar, what we think is most important for a collaboration between artists and scientists. And here's another bit of information that was developed during that residency program. Again, we handed these out to people as a way for them to understand how they could participate, and post the residency, continue to invite people to share 1 yard by 1 yard of their ground, or whatever they considered to be their yard. Even if it was hardscape, even if it was they didn't have a yard, but they spent time in the park or on the sidewalk. We wanted to see where people most often connected with the ground, or how they might have missed the ground and how they might now pay attention to the ground and center the ground. And this is when we formed a new collaborative project around the Art of the Yard called Meeting Ground. And Meeting Ground, we decided, would be a collaborative collection of projects that considers the ground as the point of entry to shared space where cultural illusions separating earth and self, individual and others, are challenged and interconnection is made visible. And so we applied our skills, MJ Neuberger and I, as artists and curators and social activists, and we invited participants to consider and interact with the spaces that they walk upon. So Yard of the Yard moved from my own purview as an individual artist into a further collaboration with MJ Neuberger. While we were on Governor's Island, MJ set up this little bed, a childhood doll's bed, with sand from the Patuxent River bed, sand that she had explored intimately and had created other projects, an impressions project, and we asked people to just touch the ground, to touch that sand. And of course, many children and adults moved their hands through the sand, and we documented that approach and talked with them about their experience. And this led us to really examine what the new questions were that we were trying to address in our collaboration, and how both MJ's imprints project and Yard of the Yard and our work together as Meeting Ground were generating their own set of new questions. And these are the questions that we came up with: how in a hyper-mediated world, how do haptic, visual, oral, language, and digital experiences combined with geolocation and site cultural context add to a more complex knowledge of the relationship between the ground and humans. What's the exchange between these bodies? How do we explore the limits and possibilities of aesthetics to open up, decolonize, and recenter a meeting with the ground? How do we bring people to the ground and the ground to people through simple, attentive acts? How do we occupy space within the urban environment, the civic consciousness, for evidence of connection and amplification of relations with the more than human world? That's a lot of questions, but we could see how scientists might be able to contribute to our knowledge base, and the connections we made at our artist residency on Governor's Island were very, very important. We started to share our information about our sites, and we developed quarterly seasonal pauses to ground and send evidence. We gathered with people and asked them to meet on the solstice, to touch the ground, to have, we created simple prompts for them to engage with their ground and then send us evidence of that exchange, which was really fun and sort of a synchronous sort of way for us to use technology to bring us all together in our contemplation of what our grounds are. And these are just some images that were gathered during those times. These are students who, one of our high school teacher in Roberts, Montana, agreed to share this project with our students. And here they are grounding and sharing their grounds. Again, those hands touching. And from that, we also started to work with a computer scientist, engineer, and designers to put together an app and to test an app as a way for people to share their ground. And here's a link to our Meeting Ground app. It's still in the beta phase. We're testing it, but please visit it and share your ground. Each one of these little bits of light are from different places and different grounds, and we invite people to share their images, sounds, and words. We would love to see how to go further with this project in particular to create more collaborative experiences between artists and non-artists, and gather information through the app for doing this. Everything is anonymous. This is not like a Facebook or Instagram sort of profile. This is an anonymous way to safely share where you are in space and time, just the time zone and your ground. Oh, sorry. And going forward, I continued with the Yard of the Yard and asked people to contribute 1 yard of the yard, either in video or in images. And this is sort of a grouping of some of those responses. And as you could see, I was really interested in gathering from all different types of people in different places. I created a PDF with yards and the statement of people who were participating in this Yard of the Yard iteration. Mary Bauman's bird feeder, and you can see the measurement, which I know that scientists will laugh at, because I really wanted a very clear 36-inch by 36-inch plot from these yards, but as you can see, this is close enough. I love the personal sort of connection and people taking a pause and really just looking at this 1 yard by 1 yard space. A letter writing experience under a tree in a public park in Columbia Heights in Washington, D.C. And Nara Park, who is an artist. A beautiful piece, performance piece by Sobia Ahmad. And then finally, I was invited to present under the auspices of our collaborative project Meeting Ground, the iteration of the Art of Yard from 2001. And you can find it here. It's a 13-minute contemplation of different yards. I linked them all together. Please take the time and relax and let the video lead you through many yards across time and space. This is just an example of experimentations with the projection of the Art of the Yard in an installation space. Another way that I thought would be a possible outcome that could happen in public space. Here's information about Cultivate, with whom Sea Grant is engaging. Sorry about that. Engaging in this exploration of what it's like to collaborate scientists and artists together, and bringing different skill sets together, and what Cultivate is really interested in. And you can see that we are very interested in many voices engaging the issues of our time. And the information about Meeting Ground, where you can also engage with our app, and a little bit about me. And I hope that if you have any questions or would like to talk more about this journey that I took you through, looking at one question in our engagement with scientists and other artists and non-artists, to take a look together at a big question. Thank you.